March 3, 1943, 500 feet above the Bismarck Sea, north of Papua New Guinea, Captain Ed Larner's B-25 Mitchell screams toward the Japanese transport at an altitude that makes every instinct scream for him to pull up. The convoy spreads across the water below. 8 transports, 8 destroyers, 16 vessels carrying 6,900 Japanese soldiers bound for Lae, New Guinea. They're close enough that Larner can see individual sailors on deck, close enough to count the anti-aircraft guns tracking his bomber as it roars in at 265 miles per hour. His bombardier doesn't call out altitude. There's no need. They're flying so low, the bomber's shadow races across the wave tops just ahead of them. So low, the propeller wash kicks up spray that streaks across the windscreen. This isn't how bombers are supposed to attack ships. This isn't high-altitude precision bombing with Norden bomb sights and mathematical calculations. This is something new, something the Japanese have never seen before. Larner's fingers tightened on the yoke. 500 feet, 400. The transport looms larger, filling his vision. A 7,000-ton ship that should be safe from level bombing at this altitude, that should have time to maneuver, that should survive whatever the Americans throw at it. The bombardier releases, not one bomb, 4 500-pound bombs dropped in rapid sequence, skipping across the water like stones thrown by a child across a pond. Except these stones weigh 500 pounds each and carry enough high explosive to crack a ship's hull like an eggshell. The first bomb hits the water 50 yards from the transport's hull, bounces once, and slams into the ship at the waterline. The second follows, then the third, the fourth. Larner pulls up hard, banking away as the transport erupts behind him. Rewind 72 hours. Rabaul, New Britain, February 28, 1943. The Japanese convoy assembles. 8 transport ships loaded with 6,900 troops from the 51st Division, along with supplies, ammunition, and equipment destined for Lae on New Guinea's northern coast. The transports are civilian vessels pressed into military service. Kyokusei-maru, Teiyo-maru, Nojima, Aiyo-maru, Taimei-maru, Shinai-maru, Kenbu-maru, and Oigawa-maru. They're slow, vulnerable, designed for cargo, not combat. The destroyers provide protection. Shirayuki, Tokitsukaze, Yukikaze, Asagumo, Arashio, Asashio, Uranami, and Shikinami. Experienced warships, but even they cannot defend against what's coming. The convoy departs Rabaul on March 1st, steaming west across the Bismarck Sea toward Lae, approximately 250 miles distant. The route takes them through waters where Allied air power operates from bases in Papua New Guinea and northern Australia. Japanese commanders know the risk. They accept it because there's no alternative. The troops must reach Lae. The supplies must get through. Japan's position in New Guinea depends on it. What they don't know is that Allied reconnaissance has already spotted them. March 1, 1943, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Allied reconnaissance aircraft report the convoy's departure from Rabaul. The intelligence reaches General George Kenney, commander of the 5th Air Force, and Major General Ennis Whitehead, his deputy. They've been waiting for this. Every convoy sailing from Rabaul to Lae presents an opportunity, a target-rich environment where Japanese ships are concentrated, vulnerable, and too far from air cover to be adequately protected. Kenney has assembled a strike force specifically for convoy interdiction, B-25 Mitchell medium bombers modified for ground attack, A-20 Havoc light bombers, B-17 Flying Fortresses for high-altitude strikes, and P-38 Lightning fighters for escort and striping. The key weapon is the modified B-25, aircraft stripped of their lower turrets, fitted with 8 forward-firing 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, and trained in a revolutionary new tactic that will transform anti-shipping warfare: skip bombing. The technique was developed by Major Paul Pappy Gunn, an innovative pilot who recognized that conventional high-altitude bombing against ships was ineffective. Accuracy was poor, ships could maneuver, bombs often missed. But what if bombers attacked at wave-top level, releasing bombs that would skip across the water like stones, bouncing into the ship's hull at or below the waterline where damage would be catastrophic? The tactic required nerve, flying straight at the target at 500 feet or lower, exposed to every anti-aircraft gun, closing to point-blank range before releasing. But the results in training were devastating. Bombs that skipped properly couldn't miss. They either hit the ship or passed over it, and when they hit, they detonated against the most vulnerable part of the hull. Now the convoy is detected. The weather is poor, clouds, rain, visibility limited. Perfect conditions for an attack the Japanese won't see coming until it's too late. March 2, 1943, the Bismarck Sea. The first Allied aircraft find the convoy in the afternoon. B-17 flying fortresses from the 43rd Bombardment Group, attacking from high altitude. They drop their bombs through the cloud cover, aiming for the transport steaming below. The results are limited. High-altitude bombing against moving ships rarely achieves significant hits. One transport, Kyokusei-maru, takes damage, but remains operational. The convoy maintains course, but the attack reveals the convoy's position. Throughout the night, Allied patrol aircraft shadow the Japanese ships, tracking their movement, radioing updates to Port Moresby. The convoy commander, Rear Admiral Kimura, knows he's been detected. He knows attacks will intensify, but turning back isn't an option. The mission is to deliver troops to Leh. The supplies must get through. Japan's position in New Guinea depends on it. What they don't know is that Allied reconnaissance has already spotted them. March 3, 1943, the Bismarck Sea. The first Allied aircraft find the convoy in the afternoon. B-17 flying fortresses from the 43rd Bombardment Group attacking from high altitude. They drop their bombs through the cloud cover, aiming for the transport steaming below. The results are limited. High-altitude bombing against moving ships rarely achieves significant hits. One transport, Kyokusei-maru, takes damage but remains operational. The convoy maintains course, but the attack reveals the convoy's position. Throughout the night, Allied patrol aircraft shadow the Japanese ships, tracking their movement, radioing updates to Port Moresby. The convoy commander, Rear Admiral Kimura, knows he's been detected. He knows attacks will intensify, but turning back isn't an option. The mission is to deliver troops to Leh. The supplies must get through. Japan's position in New Guinea depends on it. What they don't know is that Allied reconnaissance has already spotted them. The B-25s come in waves, 13 aircraft from the 90th Bombardment Squadron leading the attack, followed by more Mitchells and A-20 Havocs, over 90 Allied aircraft concentrated against 16 Japanese ships. They approach at 500 feet, sometimes lower. Their 8 nose-mounted 50-caliber machine guns opening fire while still 1,000 yards out, suppressing anti-aircraft fire, killing exposed gunners, forcing Japanese sailors to take cover. Captain Larner's bomber is among the first. He selects a transport, Kyokusei-maru, already damaged from yesterday's attack, and commits to the run. The transport's anti-aircraft guns return fire, tracers arcing toward the B-25, some rounds punching through the aircraft's thin aluminum skin. But the bomber keeps coming, closing the distance, the bombardier waiting for the perfect moment. Release. 4 500-pound bombs drop, trailing slightly behind and below the bomber, hitting the water with massive splashes. They skip once, twice, and slam into Kyokusei-maru's hull at the waterline. The explosions are catastrophic. Water and debris erupt. The ship shudders, lists immediately to port. Her hull breached below the waterline where pumps cannot reach the flooding. Other B-25s follow. Transport after transport takes skip bombing hits. Teiyomaru, Nojima, Aiyomaru. The bombs are devastating precisely because they detonate at the waterline. The structural integrity of the hull cannot withstand 500 pounds of high explosive detonating against riveted steel plates. Ships that might survive torpedo hits, that might survive high-altitude bombs striking the deck, cannot survive skip bombs tearing open their hulls at the waterline. The Japanese destroyers attempt to screen the transports, maneuvering to intercept attacking bombers, throwing up walls of anti-aircraft fire. But there are too many attackers coming from too many directions. The skip bombing tactic doesn't allow for
the careful approach that high-altitude bombing requires. The B-25s simply bore in, release at point-blank range, and pull away, giving the destroyers no time to maneuver into protective positions. March 3rd, afternoon. The Bismarck Sea has become a killing field. Within hours, all 8 transports are either sinking or dead in the water. Kyokusei-maru goes down first, her hull too damaged to remain afloat. Teiyomaru follows, listing heavily before capsizing. Nojima, Aiyomaru, Taimei-maru, Shinai-maru, Kumbu-maru, Oigawa-maru. One by one, they succumb to the skip bombing attacks. Some sink quickly from catastrophic hull breaches. Others remain afloat longer, burning, listing, their crews and the soldiers they're carrying abandoning ship into the oil-slicked water. The destroyers fare no better. Shirayuki takes multiple bomb hits and sinks. Toki Tsukaze is severely damaged and later scuttled. Asagumo and Arashio sustain damage. The remaining destroyers attempt to rescue survivors from the sinking transports, but the Allied attacks continue relentlessly. B-17s bomb from altitude. B-25s make repeated skip bombing runs. A-20 Havocs strafe anything that moves. P-38 Lightnings engage the few Japanese fighters that appear from Leh. Zeros that are outnumbered and outfought, shot down or driven off. The scale of destruction is unprecedented. This isn't a naval battle in the traditional sense. There's no exchange of gunfire between capital ships, no maneuvering for tactical advantage. This is aerial slaughter. Allied aircraft attacking with near impunity, destroying ship after ship, while the Japanese convoy has no effective defense. The anti-aircraft fire is heavy but poorly coordinated. Individual ships fight alone, unable to create the interlocking fields of fire that might drive off attackers. The strafing of survivors becomes one of the battle's most controversial aspects. P-38 Lightnings and B-25 Mitchells make repeated low-level passes over the debris field, their machine guns tearing through lifeboats, rafts, and men clinging to wreckage. The water churns with impacts. Oil slicks ignite from tracer rounds. The sea turns red. Allied pilots justify the attacks as military necessity. The men in the water are soldiers bound for combat against Australian and American forces. Allowing them to be rescued means they'll fight another day. The Japanese Navy has a well-established rescue capability. Destroyers are already maneuvering to pull survivors from the water. Every soldier rescued is a soldier who will kill Allied troops in New Guinea's jungles. Therefore, deny them rescue. Therefore, strafe the lifeboats. The logic is cold but militarily sound. The morality is another question entirely. International law regarding attacks on shipwreck survivors is murky in 1943. There are conventions, but their application in the Pacific theater, where quarter is rarely given or expected, is debatable. Allied command approves the attacks, the pilots execute them, the Japanese survivors die by the hundreds in the water, shot or drowned or burned in flaming oil. Some destroyers manage to rescue survivors despite the attacks. Yukikaze, Asashio, and Uranami pull men from the water between airstrikes, taking on as many as possible before Allied bombers return. But the numbers are devastating. Of 6,900 troops aboard the transports, fewer than 3,000 reach Leh. Nearly 4,000 soldiers drown, are killed by strafing, or die from exposure and wounds. Additionally, approximately 1,000 Japanese sailors from the transport crews and destroyer escorts are killed. The convoy is annihilated. All 8 transports sunk. 4 destroyers sunk or scuttled. The remaining destroyers damaged and forced to withdraw to Rabaul. Operation 81 is a complete failure. The reinforcements never reach Leh. The aftercounting shocks both sides. Japanese losses: 8 transports, totaling approximately 50,000 tons. 4 destroyers sunk, 4 more damaged, and between 2,890 and 3,664 troops killed. Sources vary, but the scale of the disaster is undeniable. Japan also loses aircraft. Approximately 20 Zeros shot down while attempting to defend the convoy or engaging Allied fighters over the battle area. Allied losses are remarkably light. 5 aircraft destroyed, 2 B-17s, 1 P-38, 1 P-40, and 1 Australian Beaufighter. 13 Allied aircrew killed. The disparity is staggering. Thousands of Japanese dead versus a handful of Allied casualties. It's not a battle. It's a one-sided massacre enabled by technological innovation and tactical surprise. The skip bombing tactic proves devastatingly effective. Traditional anti-shipping tactics, high-altitude bombing or torpedo attacks, allow targets time to maneuver, allow defensive fire to disrupt attacks, allow ships to survive near misses. Skip bombing eliminates these factors. Bombs released at 500 feet or lower skip directly into the target's hull. There's no time to maneuver. There's no margin for error. The bombs either hit or skip over. and with multiple aircraft attacking simultaneously, the hit probability approaches certainty. Major General Ennis Whitehead's after-action report documents the battle with clinical precision. He notes the effectiveness of coordinated attacks using multiple aircraft types. B-17s bombing from altitude to suppress anti-aircraft fire and force ships into path of low-level attackers. B-25s executing skip bombing runs. A-20s strafing anything that moves. P-38 Lightnings engaging the few Japanese fighters that appear from Leh. Zeros that are outnumbered and outfought, shot down or driven off. For Japan, the Battle of the Bismarck Sea represents catastrophic failure. Not just the loss of ships and men, but the revelation that their convoy system is unsustainable against Allied air power. The aftermath extends far beyond the immediate losses. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea marks the effective end of Japanese daytime convoy operations in the Southwest Pacific. After March 3, 1943, Japan cannot safely move troops and supplies by sea during daylight hours within range of Allied air bases. The implications are catastrophic for Japanese strategic planning. New Guinea becomes untenable. Without reinforcements, without resupply, Japanese positions cannot be sustained. The troops there already must fight with dwindling ammunition, food, and medical supplies. Reinforcements must travel by submarine or fast destroyer runs at night. Methods that can move small numbers but cannot sustain an army. The 6,900 soldiers who died in the Bismarck Sea cannot be replaced. The supplies that went down with the transports cannot be replaced. Leh will fall, Salamaua will fall. The entire Japanese position in New Guinea will collapse over the following months. The battle also demonstrates Allied air superiority. Japan's Zero fighters, which dominated early Pacific air combat, are now outmatched by P-38 Lightnings in increasingly sophisticated tactics. The Zeros that attempted to defend the convoy were outnumbered and outfought. Japanese air power in the Southwest Pacific is broken, not through a single decisive air battle, but through attrition, through technological advancement, through the simple fact that America can produce aircraft and train pilots faster than Japan can replace losses. By late 1943, Japanese air power in the Southwest Pacific is a shadow of its 1942 strength. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea didn't cause this decline alone, but it accelerated the collapse. The skip-bumping tactic survives the battle to become standard doctrine. Major Paul Pappy Gunn, the innovator who developed the technique, continues modifying B-25s throughout the war, adding more forward-firing machine guns, improving armor protection, refining attack procedures. The modified B-25s, dubbed commerce destroyers by some units, become the premier anti-shipping weapon in the Pacific theater. The technique spreads beyond the 5th Air Force. Other units adopt skip bombing. Training programs formalize the procedures. By 1944, modified B-25s are operating throughout the Pacific, hunting Japanese convoys, destroying coastal shipping, interdicting supply lines. The tactic that debuted at the Bismarck Sea becomes routine. Still dangerous, still requiring nerve to fly at wave-top level into concentrated anti-aircraft fire, but proven effective beyond question. Japan never develops an adequate counter. Anti-aircraft fire remains the only defense, but ships cannot generate enough fire density to stop determined low-level attackers. Fighters can intercept bombers before they reach targets, but Japan's declining air strength means fewer fighters available for convoy escort. The convoy system that sustained Japanese expansion across the Pacific becomes a death trap. Targets sailing predictable routes, vulnerable to air attack, unable to defend themselves effectively. The title 400 planes vanished references not just aircraft lost in the immediate battle, but the broader collapse of Japanese air power that the battle represents. After Bismarck Sea, Japan cannot sustain air operations at the intensity required to defend convoys, support ground forces, or contest Allied air superiority. The decline is gradual but irreversible. Aircraft lost faster than factories can build them, pilots killed faster than training programs can replace them, fuel supplies dwindling as American submarines strangle maritime supply lines. By late 1943, Japanese air power in the Southwest Pacific is a shadow of its 1942 strength.
The Battle of the Bismarck Sea didn't cause this decline alone, but it accelerated the collapse.